So let's get right into it. Thank you for availing yourselves to this webinar today. So let me introduce the panelists. Annabel Angwenyi, ladies first, obviously. She's the co-founder of Kazi app, a service on-demand platform that helps consumers find trusted businesses and service providers in their vicinity and increases visibility for business owners. Kazi app was founded in 2017 with the aim of eliminating missed business opportunities for Kenyan entrepreneurs. Annabel is passionate about filmmaking and innovation. And then next I will go to Clement. Clement is a Malawian social entrepreneur and a farmer. He's very passionate about renewable energy, sustainable agriculture, climate change, and waste management. Clement is a founder and CEO of EcoGen, a startup company founded in 2018 to provide technically advanced biodigester technology that converts organic waste into renewable cooking gas and biofertilizer for small-scale farmers, households, and institutions to reduce food shortage, poverty, and climate change. And Johannes Wilms is, he had experience as an entrepreneur in Kenya. He has a very interesting story, so I will let him just tell us more about that as he starts the session. Over to you, Johannes.
Thank you very much, Wambui, and thank you for the intros. I think today's focus is actually a entrepreneur request from one of our many applicants in this funding cohort, and they were saying, you know, it all looks great what you're posting on social media and on your website, but you know, we'd really like to meet some of the entrepreneurs you've invested in before, right? So I think it's also nice to see that this is really a focus topic and you know, an interest of our current applicants to understand, you know, what kind of businesses we invest in. And therefore, I want to thank again for Annabel and Clement to avail their time today, because all entrepreneurs in this call and us as well, we know how valuable time is to us. We have 1,001 things to do. And so thank you very much for making your time available. I will skip a little bit the intro about myself. I'm also an entrepreneur, and I have a 6-year experience setting up a business in Kenya as an expatriate founder. But I must say, I want to let our local founders speak today, because you know, that's what we're focused on, local founders. Before we jump into questions for Annabel and Clement, I wanted to give a little bit of a context on how and when we invested in Annabel and Clement, because a lot has changed since then. And these are exciting changes that will also you know, shed some light on the answers that Annabel and Clement might give to your questions. Basically, at the beginning of 2020, we did our main investment cohort up to date, and that was basically still a very manual process, where we had probably 250 applications. We did a lot of focus on entrepreneurial potential and entrepreneurial capacity, and that process was a big learning for us, because we met entrepreneurs like Annabel and Clement and many others, and we basically had to find a way where we could invest in great entrepreneurs in a scalable way. And so investing in this first cohort at the beginning of 2020 was still quite a manual process. And we managed in the end to invest into a total of 27 entrepreneurs. So Clement was part of the investment cohort at the beginning of this year, at the beginning of 2021. And we had improved a little bit the investment model and the investment selection process, and managed then to bring Clement also into the portfolio. These two first kind of cohorts gave us the information that and the learnings we needed to digitize the process. So for us, not just to invest into 2 or 30 or 50, but into hundreds. And that's kind of the purpose at Ancap, is not just investing into individuals, great entrepreneurs like Annabel and Clement, but doing this across the continent and making capital available to all good entrepreneurs. So again, we thank very much Annabel and Clement for their patience during this learning, because we did take quite some time to get through this process. And you all the listeners and the new entrepreneurs in this cohort can thank them for things being able to go much faster this time around. So I just wanted to give a little bit of context of that, so that you know what has happened to date. What I will do now is I will start off the questions by asking a few questions to Annabel and Clement, and I hope not to put you on the spot, but maybe a little bit, just to trigger off the conversation. And as Wambui already mentioned, please feel free to already note down your questions in the Q&A, so that we can then move on to the questions coming from all the participants. So my first question is really about fundraising in general, because we know that for every entrepreneur, fundraising is a huge task for every early stage business. And without funding, it's hard to get traction. Without funding, it's hard to make progress. Maybe Annabel, you can shed us some light on your fundraising journey from the early stages of Kazi app, and some insights you gained on that journey before and maybe also after you met Ancap.
Okay, thanks for having me. Let me start from that. And I think the second thing I can mention is my motto, which is do what you can with what you have. And that's basically how we've gotten to where we are now. So the idea for Kazi came about late 2016, early 2017. And when we finally took the jump to do it, the first cost that was coming to mind was the development cost to get the app into the market. And when you're asking without some insight, I should mention that I'm more business and not technical. A lot of the quotations for development work were in the millions of Kenya shillings, which was nowhere within my budget. So after that, we just did a whole lot of research and started talking to people who were more contextual, that is more developers, instead of asking more business people. So I had to move outside of my network to get insight on how the tech space looked like. And it's funny that our first app was made with like 1/10 of our initial, invoice amount that we got for like the millions. And looking back, it looks like a very basic app, but I was very proud of that effort. And I think the insights that we got from the first platform are definitely the fundamentals that have led us to the point where we are now. So we did what we could with the 50,000 Kenya shillings, 100,000 Kenya shillings that we put together between myself and my co-founder. And after that, you hit the ground running. To be perfect,
you have your MVP and you have something to show, right?
Exactly. That's the big one. Mostly, I have to admit, for African founders, it seems that an MVP is seeming that more necessary. I think some of our Western compatriots have the benefit of an idea and some experience. We seem to need an MVP in a certain capacity before we can start knocking on doors. Yeah, so we had our MVP and we met the Ancap team when we had our MVP, but we were already in the process of developing what is the current version of the app. But the traction from the first app in conjunction with like having an actual product, I think is what gave us the edge and got us into like the pilot cohort of Ancap. Yeah.
Great. And I mean, I don't know about this, but did you talk to other investors, and was there some other experiences you got in your fundraising journey? I mean, Ancap was probably not the only one you talked to, or were you so focused on Ancap that nothing else mattered?
It's interesting. Like, we weren't looking to fundraise that early on. I knew it would be a hard task to do it without traction. So we wanted to build a product and have like X% of market validation before we started knocking on doors. I tried doing it in the ideation stage and it was rejection on rejection on rejection. It's the nice rejection that comes nowadays where investors say, it's not us, it's not you, it's us. But in between, when you read in between the lines, you can see that, or if you look at the portfolios, you can kind of figure out where the money is going. And for you to be considered, you need to be at the stage that their portfolios were when they put money there. So that's another strategy. Look at the portfolios, figure out where they were standing when money was invested in them. And then come back and tell them, look, when I first knocked at your door, this is where I was, this is how much we've grown, this are the users that have increased, this is our revenue now. And people really pucker up when they can see like an upward growth.
Some traction and building a track record. And yeah, but I think that's a very interesting insight, that because it's not normal for early stage businesses to fundraise maybe the amount that we fund, right? Because either you're bootstrapping and you're doing an MVP with what you have, like you explained, and then you hope to win an investment sum of $500,000 or you try to make a big jump, right? So maybe Ancap was offering something that's not normal in the investing landscape. So we came at the right time, at least for us, where we said maybe we can help you along to get to the next stage.
That's it. You've taken the words out of my mouth. And the amount that Ancap are giving also, I think is very strategic for the levels that, like the stage that you're coming in at. Because at this stage, I think we have also been quite blinded by the amounts of money that are moving around the startup scene right now. Like all we're seeing is 100 million unicorns, but there's quite a big need for smaller checks at the initial stage. If you ask me, it's more necessary at the stage that Ancap is coming in at than it would be when you're getting to Series A. Because by the time you've gotten to Series A, you've gotten your validation, you've gotten some of your revenue streams in order, but there's a gap when you're starting off, when you need the most support, and that support is not that common in the African setting. Yeah,
and that's another thing you mentioned, that not every startup has to be a unicorn. Not every startup is going along the high-tech, high-growth trajectory. And I mean, you are a tech business and you have the potential to scale big, but at the end of the day, you know, the growth of the local economy is not built by unicorns. It's built by, you know, grassroots businesses that are in commerce, in retail, in manufacturing, you know, in agriculture. So, you know, we need also funding solutions for these kind of businesses, and not just venture capital, which are focused on high tech, high growth. Right. So
I quite like the tagline you've been using, which is to invest in potential to grow your business and not your startup, because I think there's already connotations around startup and the exponential scaling, and you need to be in how many countries in this many years. I think even the words that you choose, the copy that you put out is very important in the people that you want to reach. You want to reach people who are doing everyday businesses, leveraging technology, and not necessarily looking to become the next Flutterwave.
Well, we can blame One Boy for the copy, so thank you for that.
You can praise One Boy for the copy.
So I mean that's a great bridge now to move to Clement, because he's not an IT business, right? Clement, you are still a technology business where you're bringing you know, a new technology to the market, but you're not per se an online product. So how was it for you to fundraise, and what kind of experiences were you getting? And we all know rejection is part of every entrepreneur's journey, but how did you end up with Ancap on your radar, and what was your journey until you got there?
Yeah, so yeah, our journey for raising money at EcoGen wasn't that easy. Looking at the market that we are and the technology that we are bringing on the market, but also especially funding startups, especially in my country, Malawi, it's not that easy, okay? Because if you go to the bank, there are so many restrictions, so many conditions that someone has to meet so that they should give you money. And yeah, it wasn't that easy. And it could be some time whereby you could lose everything and start all over. But I think because of the passion that myself had on the journey to make this thing work, but also to make the impact that I want to do, that helped us to be resilient enough and be able to keep on approaching other investors so that they can fund us. So basically, we've been able to survive in the awards, our prize money that we have been getting, but also that was not enough, because it was just little money that couldn't help us to really penetrate the market, because the market the product was mainly the new product. That means we had to do a lot of marketing so that people to know us. We had to test quite a number of products so that we should really come up with the best product that can fit the market. But from the investors that we approached, UNCAP has been the best for me so far, because they really understood our journey. They really understood what we bring on the market. And the one thing, I think, they really trusted the company that they're working with, that we have the potential to grow something bigger. Honestly speaking, whenever we never had the funding from UNCAP, we sell 1 product, sometimes even 0, sometimes 2. By now you can sell even more than 10 or more, okay, per month. Okay, but this has been because before we couldn't have enough money to do enough marketing, to try new strategies on how best you can penetrate the market. That was limiting us to really take the product to bigger population. By now, having gotten the funding from UNCAP, we managed to bring in new marketing strategy, to try new marketing strategy. And from there, we also managed to meet other partners that helped us to make sure that we penetrate the market. And through that, we have been able to come up with the best product, to come up with the best service, to come up with the best strategy that has managed us to increase our sales. So that has been really good for having UNCAP on board on our company.
I mean, thank you for mentioning that, Clement, but I can feel for you because you really showed patience and resilience, because you were part of the second cohort, and since we first met and until we then could invest, a lot of time passed by, right? So I think this is also a real sign of grit, of resilience of entrepreneurs, that it's an important characteristic to have. And there will be hard times for all of us, right? And so we really applaud that for you hanging in there and having that patience for the deal to go through. And this is something that we obviously now improved, and we really, from the application to the investment, that there's not too much time passing by, so that an early stage business like yours isn't hanging in the dark. So thank you for that. I think one thing that you mentioned, which is also very true for a lot of entrepreneurs, is that for an early stage business, banks they just don't have the right solution, because they need you to jump through a lot of hoops and a lot of restrictions and requirements, as you mentioned. And also, usually, if you get a loan from a bank, you have to pay back a big amount every month, no matter if you make an income or not, right? Sure. So that's a big burden also for you into servicing that debt. And as we do revenue-based financing at Ancap, where you only service the investment we make by repurchasing your equity through a revenue share. If you don't make revenue, you will not be burdened by a big payment. Before we jump to the questions we have from the participants, I wanted to also maybe ask both of you what, in your experience, is something that you can recommend to the other entrepreneurs doing their fundraising now. What is one thing that you would recommend them to do and is like a must-have, and one thing that is like a taboo, which you said, where you might have had a bad experience, or where you might have done something that investors didn't understand. And Clement, you mentioned trust being important, right? And this is something we value very much at Ancap, that we trust you to make the right decisions as a good entrepreneur, that we let you make the decisions what type of business you want to lead. But what are some pitfalls for fundraising that you might have experienced, and some tips for the listeners?
Yeah, so What I can encourage my fellow entrepreneurs is, I think for entrepreneur, whether you're making sales or you're having some stress, nice days and so forth, you need to make sure that you keep records of your business. I think this is something very key that most investors look at. And also, you need to make sure that you have all the required documentation for your business ready, legal documents and all that is required for your business. Because investors, whenever they come, they'll be more interested to look at all those things. And most investors now, they would want to see that this person is able to really track the records, to track the financials is making and whatever that is doing. Okay, so this is something a key that I would encourage most entrepreneurs to make sure that they have. Make sure that your records are up to date, and also you have all the documents needed for your business ready. So
Yeah, that's a great tip, and as an investor, yes, this is an important thing that we also encourage, and it could be a deal breaker for us if someone applying for us doesn't have the right documentation. So you know, it's and especially knowing your numbers, keeping your accounts up to date and accurate. You know, it's really shows confidence and lets us, you know, do our due diligence, because you know we also have investors that need to double check, you know, our accounts, and so I know very well that these are really important points. You know? And Annabel, I know you're an accounting specialist yourself. So apart from mentioning what Clement did, what are some other recommendations you can give?
I think one that I've kind of learned the hard way is to look for investors that are aligned with what you're doing. I think if I'm to speak from experience, a lot of the rejections I've gotten have been because I didn't do my homework quite well. So again, look at the portfolios of the investors that you're looking at. You get an idea of the stage that they usually invest in. In many cases, we're too early, but we're very ambitious as entrepreneurs. So we think if we cast our net wide, we'll catch at least a few fish. But there's been instances where you do 100 applications and you get 100 rejections. And I think it's, for myself, if I'm speaking from experience, it's because I wasn't very intentional about who I was reaching out to and figuring out, are we aligned in terms of stage? Are we aligned in terms of who they invest in? And I think I might have had a better success rate initially if I was a bit more intentional. And the second one is, don't always listen to the advice that investors give you. Because at the end of the day, you know your business, and I don't think you would do it if you aren't passionate about it. I keep inserting the caveat for African businesses because a lot of investors in our industry are not local investors. So there's some context that sometimes gets lost in translation, and it's hard for you to convey it just in terms of words if somebody hasn't been on the ground. And sometimes I like that we have Johannes because he's been in Kenya for 6 years, so that I can talk about M-Pesa, I can talk about the lady who sells vegetables on the side of the street without having to mention, like, no, that's not, I'm not talking about like a Walmart. I'm talking about literally a woman who's sitting on the, so there's contextual stuff that they might not understand, and investors are very stubborn. Mostly people who've been investing for a while. So take some of the advice that they give you with a grain of salt if indeed you are confident in your abilities and the information that you have before you started your business. Not everything needs to be taken in.
Yeah, no, that's really true, and that's also a key value that we also push at Ancap, and maybe that's why we were such a good match, is because we generally don't give advice to our entrepreneurs, right? Because what do we know about running an app in Kenya or in Senegal? What do we know about the markets in Malawi, right? We are really here to give you capital for you to make the strategic decisions, for you to implement what you know to do best, right? So do you feel that we have been trying to give you a lot of advice, or do you think we let you keep to your idea of running a business?
We definitely have 100% autonomy on that one, but there's an advantage. Like, it's different when an investor is kind of telling you this won't work, you need to do it this way, versus what I think has been happening between Kazi and Ancap, which is I come to Johannes and I say, I need some help here. And I think from stalking you on LinkedIn, you might be able to help me out. That's working perfectly. So when it's us approaching you for the experience and the expertise that you're good at, that one has been working very well. And no, Ancap hasn't tried to force anything down Kazi's throat.
Okay, awesome, perfect. I think on that note, Wambui, I'll hand over to you, and maybe we can look at some of the questions from our participants and see if we can get a dialogue happening between the participants and our investees.
Oh, let's start with the first one that came from Melvin, and he asked why these two entrepreneurs, what particular attributes do they both share, or based on what criteria were they chosen for today's meeting? Was it based on their achievements, time taken to scale and gain traction, revenues, leadership skills, team vision, etc.?
Okay, so this is more a question to Ancap than to our entrepreneurs, but I'll answer it in a minute. But I'll probably just deflect this question to our entrepreneurs. And how do you feel that we made the decision to fund you? Do you understand what was behind our decision, or how do you feel we made that decision? Maybe Clement, you can share your view on this.
I think, yeah, for me, UNCAP made decision to fund us because of trusting the process that we are going through. I understand that yes, UNCAP took a lot of time to fund us, and somehow it was so stressful. Yeah, so like you think, okay, now I think I need to produce more products so that I can go in the market, and because we're expecting money from UNCAP and the deadline comes, you find out there's no money. Okay, somehow it was something stressing, but then we still kept moving, we still kept making records and so forth. So I think for me, this is something that UNCAP was more interested to see that, okay, despite us maybe complaining somehow here and there, but we still make things work for us. Okay, so basically this is something that made UNCAP to fund us.
Thank you, Clement. Annabel, what was it for you that could you see behind the curtain and see how how do you think we made the decision?
I'm going to echo Clement's response, and I think the big one, if you ask me, was like the resilience. I felt like there was what's the word? There was quite some weight to how you valued the resilience of business owners in Africa, because even with the revenue share model, it's not something that's short term. So I think Ancap was looking for people who are resilient. Like, we know that business is not good all the time, mostly considering the economic times right now. So I think the way that you valued how passionate we are and how resilient we can be as business owners was a big one on how you invested in us.
Okay, I'm taking notes on this. Very interesting reflections. So I can totally understand why the both of you have that perspective. And to be honest, we believe every entrepreneur, especially in the countries we're targeting, are resilient. I mean, that for us is already a given. I think the dynamic of us being a startup ourselves and trying to find out how best to invest into early stage entrepreneurs such as yourselves, we had to find the right way, and that finding out took a long time, and this obviously caused a lot of stress, but now you've paved the way for the entrepreneurs applying now to have a much stressless investment process and a much faster turnaround on the investment. So thank you for taking the stress of future entrepreneurs on yourself. But to look behind the curtain, and we want to be quite transparent about this, we basically have two main aspects on which we evaluate and qualify applications. One is that we make sure that the stage of your business and the status of your business is a match to us. So have you got traction in the market? Have you already gained some revenues? And this is a learning we've made. And for example, Annabel, I know that we invested to you in you with pre-revenue, but so now we need businesses that have already made some revenues and that have good records, as Clement says, that they have due process. So that is important for us. So this is the one component where we see everything is in order with your business. You have a certain a stage of your businesses that you've gotten to. And the other component that we evaluate is your entrepreneurial potential, your capacity as an entrepreneur. So I don't know if you remember, Clement and Annabel, you went through a series of assessments and questionnaires, and those were really there to test, you know, your characteristic, your behavior, your mindset as an entrepreneur. And you know, you have a lot of investors always saying, we value very much the potential of our founders, of our entrepreneurs, but they don't have a way to quantify it. So this is really where Ancap also specializes, is we want to quantify your entrepreneurial capacity, and that's the second component of our assessment. So giving a bit of a sneak peek behind the curtain, we value your skill set, your behavior, and your character. So this is how we also ensure that you have a financial literacy, that you have a certain skill set in place, that you have the right growth mindset. So these are all things. And if you have co-founders, we also value to understand the team dynamics and the co-founding dynamics of your venture. Yeah. So as our name says, it is unconventional, you know, and thanks to the real pioneer cohorts of Annabel and Clement, we were allowed to turn all these learnings into a more seamless and faster process, which is now the current investment cohort that we're running now. So sorry for a very long answer to the question, but I think it's important to highlight these things.
Thank you, everybody, for those answers and participation. The next question was actually asking the entrepreneurs at what stage of the entrepreneurial journey they opted to look for an investor, which I think has been answered. Someone would like to connect with Annabel and Clement. I will share their LinkedIn accounts on the chat and you can reach out to them. Next question is from Oscar and he asks, I don't have an MVP. My business is running on a third-party API and it's already generating revenue. Most third-party APIs are SaaS. What of this case? How are you sorting out this bias?
Sorry, what was the last sentence of the question?
How are you sorting out this bias? What the people who they have a third-party API?
Well, I think at the end of the day, if your offering works and you're generating revenues, then you found a creative way to bring your product to market, right? So no matter if you're using a third-party SaaS or an API to connect and bring value to customers, then nonetheless you are running a business, right? So I think we don't want to dive into the depth of your business model and make assumptions about what can work and what doesn't work. At the end of the day, if you're making revenues, it works, right? So, and we cannot be experts on the 1,000 different revenue models and the 1,000 different business models in all these different markets, right? You're the expert, you're the entrepreneur. So if you found a way to make it work, then we're happy with that. Yeah. So and if all other things fall into line, then that's a good potential.
All right. Oscar also asks, how long does it take for the deal to be closed? Is it seamless, or is there an issue of the investor approving the deal and it takes months to transact?
Yeah, I think we have previous office hours which go into depth of that and can answer those questions. I'd really like to answer that, but I think we really should focus on the time made available today by Annabel and Clement. So maybe, is there any other direct question to them?
There's one that, let me just read it. They ask, does it ever reach a point and the entrepreneur feels like requesting Ancap to reduce on the 3 times that they have to pay in 8 to 10 years, or are they content with it?
I will bring this question to our entrepreneurs. So this goes into the deal terms, right? So the contract that we've made with our investees, and I think what he's mentioning is the multiple, right? So if we invest, for example, $10,000 into buying equity of a company, they have a commitment to have, for example, 2.5 or 3 multiple to repurchase that equity. Annabel, what is your opinion about the multiple, and how does it affect your everyday business?
I think my answer is going to come off as if I'm an Ancap mole, but it took me a minute to get to that point. And how I got to the point of signing with Ancap is looking at, like, I literally broke down how the repayment would look and how, for lack of a better word, unstressful the repayments would be, considering we're a young company. So even in the question, it was mentioned 8 to 10 years. Imagine paying X% back of your revenue over 10 years. It's not as stressful as it would be if it was a bank paying back monthly. So once I flipped my perspective and started looking at it instead of like bulk, because I think the initial disposition was to do the back of the envelope mathematics, which is I'm getting 10,000, for example, and I'm paying back 30,000. And it's like, yeah, that doesn't make sense. But you're paying 30,000 over 10 years, for example. And if that quarter, you're not making as good money as you did the previous quarter, the amount varies. So that's how I looked at it. And that's how the resilience disappeared.
Yeah, I think that's a great explanation, because at the end of the day, the multiple doesn't represent the burden on the side of the entrepreneur, but what really affects the entrepreneur on a monthly basis is the revenue share, right? So if you make $1,000 a month revenues, you have to pay 5% of that, right? And if you're making income, what is 5% of that income in terms of a burden, right? So I think that perspective is quite a sensible, and the other thing you mentioned is comparing it to other offers, like what a bank can offer and the burden that a credit product or a loan can how that burdens you on a monthly basis. So yeah, I think Clement, do you have a similar perspective, or what was your perspective on the multiple?
Yeah, I think it's the same way Annabel is saying, that for me it was quite flexible, because honestly, somehow, even though the banks were giving us so much conditions, but somehow I was afraid, because they were expecting us each and every month to have a target, the money that I should pay. So with you.
Have we lost Clement?
Yeah, UNCAP, that means I'm supposed to pay. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you again.
Yeah, so I was saying that unlike the banks, whereby they have conditions to have to pay a certain amount every month, for me it was quite different with UNCAP, because I was able to pay the 5% from the revenue that I make. So for me, that wasn't that stressful, because I understood the market that I'm into, whereby maybe sometimes I might have issues to maybe make enough sales for me to have that target of the money that I need to pay. But in this case, that means I'm flexible in whatever I do, and I'll be able to make the right decision, so that to make sure that I put the business moving forward. And looking that also, I'm able to have more time, 10 years, 8 years for me to pay. This was enough to say I can make the right decisions to make sure that the company is moving forward, other than stressing my time thinking of how much should I pay each and every month, like if it was maybe working with the banks. So for me, with the UNCAP, it was quite flexible repayment of the money.
Yeah. No, I think.
Oh, sorry. I wanted to add something that came to mind.
Please do.
The benefit of buying back your shares also, that was a good one. And secondly, having Ancap on your cap table is really working well for us. It's giving confidence to other investors. So there's a benefit there that I hadn't considered when I was signing the contract. But as we're starting to talk about fundraising conversations, I'm starting to see that having Ancap there is making people a bit more comfortable than they would be previously.
Yeah, that's also a great point. And Annabel, you've already seen, you've already taken the next step in your fundraising Germany after Ancap, right? And I think Clement is also thinking about his future funding needs, right? So I think it's important also to have that credibility with someone invested in your company, rather than a debtor that you're having to service. The other thing which Clement says is that sometimes when you get a venture capital investor, they try to direct your business into a direction which will give them the maximum return on their investment, right? And one other consideration that is important about this 3x, this 3 times multiple, is that it's also limited, right? So if we're not pushing you as an entrepreneur in a direction that we think is best for us, but you have the time and you don't have the stress to you can make the right decisions for your business from a strategic point, not from the pressure point of finances, right? And also from a bank's perspective, the consequences of defaulting on a bank has also major consequences. But I think keeping the entrepreneur in the driver's seat is really important for us, and making them unstressed and making them really focus on building their business is really the highest interest for Ancap.
Thanks, Johannes. We're almost out of time, but there's a very good question. So maybe Annabel and Clement in 1 minute. Enoch says, well done, Annabel and Clement. Is there any challenge you have faced in repaying Ancap? How would you advise us to maintain a good relationship with Ancap? Maybe Annabel, you can go first.
Yeah, so this is the benefit of the revenue share, doing things right, where if things aren't that good in one particular quarter, Ancap has visibility of that, and they know that what's coming in that time is going to be different than the months that are doing better. So I don't think there's an issue, there's a problem, or there's been a problem then. I don't foresee any problem there. As a continuation of that, I just think having monthly, quarterly catch-ups with somebody from the team, keeping them abreast of what's happening, is always good with any investor, whether it's Ancap or a VC. I talk with Elias quite a lot, and the team is usually abreast of what we're doing, and they help even in ways that I hadn't thought of previously. So yeah, revenue share model works well, that you shouldn't worry about it. And 2, keep tabs with the team, and I think everything will be okay.
Thank you, Clement.
Yeah, just to add on that, yeah, true, it's not stressing as you should think with the banks and the other investors. For this is so flexible, and that has helped us to make a better decision for our company. Okay, so for you to make sure that you keep a good relationship with Ancap is to make sure that you update them about the way your business is going. But also, if maybe you need some advice from them, you can contact them and see how best they can help you. So that way you feel that you are going in the same direction, And I hope that will help you to build your business and then to get the revenue needed so that you pay back the money. Sure.
Thank you, Clement.
Thank you so much for those answers and for your time today, both to the participants and the panelists. I'd like to stress that the application deadline is tomorrow, so please take some time and just continue with your application. Johannes, might you have any last words?
No, again, thank you for Annabel and Clement to take part and make the time available. And yeah, I also want to encourage anyone to reach out to them and also, get a one-to-one advice. But do understand that they are also busy entrepreneurs, so be patient with them as you will know the journey yourselves.
Great, thank you so much. Please, you can reach us on social media platforms, that's Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn as Ancap. We are available for your needs. And just to share to Melvin that we are not reachable on phone, we're fully remote, but we assure you that we will be in touch if you send us an email to support@unconventional.capital. All right, thank you so much for your time and talk soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Annabelle. Thank you, Clement. Thank you, One Boy. Thank you, all participants.